Okay, here we go. Hi, everyone. You are being joined today by my new friend and social media stranger, I guess, Alyssa Fox. Alyssa is the Senior Director of Partner Marketing for Alert Logic, and I'm looking forward to learning about who you are and what you do, Alyssa, and thank you for giving us your time during the quarantine to talk with my students. Yeah, I got you at a good time. Like, what else are you gonna do?
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah. Thanks for being here. So I don't really know anything about you or your company, and like I said, I'm interested in learning more. But to the students, I want to say that this is this conversation that we're having, this point of connectivity, is just a testament to people willing to network and make themselves available to other people, especially, you know, in times of crisis such as the one that we're experiencing. I believe it was the Daily Carnage Facebook group that I connected with you on.
Facebook? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Was it the Daily Carnage group?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought. Okay, so
yes.
Yeah. Okay, so like this just happened to be a group of marketing professionals and communications professionals and some designers, and I put the call out there and she kindly responded. So don't be afraid to just kind of put yourself out there and be willing to have conversations with people, right?
Yeah, it's great to meet new people like this.
Yeah. So, Alyssa, I don't know if you're experiencing a lag on your end. I've got a little bit of one. A little bit? Okay. Hopefully, it will work itself out. Should I lose you, I'll keep the Zoom meeting open and you can just boot back in. Still there? Like right now. Okay.
Okay. Back?
There we go. Okay. Okay. So we're still recording. There's no problem there. So tell me a little bit about who you are and what you do. How did you get your start in marketing?
So, great question. I actually started my career in technical communication, and I've worked for software companies my entire career, and I was writing. I spent probably 15 to 16 years doing that. And then I got into content strategy. And I was starting to learn a lot about enterprise content strategy and how did I tie in marketing content with technical content with professional services content. I was very interested in how do we make a cohesive experience for all of our buyers, our prospects, our users across that content ecosystem. So that's how I ended up in marketing just a few years ago, actually. I've only been in marketing for about 3 years through content strategy, and I've done different flavors of marketing ever since. So, but it all kind of goes back to content for me because we use content in everything. And that's kind of my passion. And I really love the fact that everything in marketing sort of comes back to that in many ways.
Yeah. So tell me about that content marketing aspect of things. What do you really love about it? Can you elaborate on that?
Sure. First of all, I just love creating content. I've always been interested in writing. I've obviously done technical writing in my career. I've done creative writing when I was younger. I just love the idea of just like sitting down with what used to be a blank piece of paper, now a blank screen, and just coming up with something that people might be able to use. So I really like just that very starting point of it. And then going beyond that, once I heard about content marketing and started getting involved in that, it amazed me how a well thought out strategy for that and a well thought out plan could really actually drive leads and then revenue in a
Mm-hmm.
company. I mean, I mean, I'm still fascinated by the fact that that is possible, that somebody can sit down and write like an ebook or something and put some cool graphics in there and really tell a story about how we might help you with a problem that you're having. And people are like, oh, they read that and then they want more. And then you get to create more content, and then actually be able to measure, the efficiency of that and the usage of that. And that's really one of the reasons I wanted to move into marketing. I wanted to be closer to the business side of things, and really show other people in the organization, especially the C-suite, that content is a big driver and a big deal, and truly a business asset. So that's, I mean, my love for content just pops out everywhere.
I'm so glad to hear that, because so this class I'm teaching is brand management. And one of the things that I'm trying to convey to them the most is that in order to manage a brand, you have to understand the whole of it, the soul, right? You have to understand all of the aspects about it and how people perceive it. And once you know that, you can access it in unique and different ways. But it also is fed and substantiated and grown through content marketing. So you do things, you put that brand into effect using specific tools and techniques and stories that enhance it. It's not just there's the brand, let's make an ad and there you go. It's like everything is very strategically done. So when you say connecting to the business side of that creativity, I absolutely get that, because I'm a strategist, and that's where I kind of thrive. And then manifesting that strategy through specific content, it just wraps everything up together really nicely. So
yeah, absolutely. You can't have a brand without the content, right? I mean, you have to have the content there to support it, or you have no brand. I mean, that's what it boils down to.
Yeah, and if you're not developing those types of assets, then you're just kind of floating around. And if something happens by accident, like, that's your brand by accident. There's no design there or strategy at all. So, with the marketing and design students I have, like, I'm really trying to push them to harness and channel their creativity and output it into ways that you prefer in that content marketing sort of output. So what is your process like when you're developing, I don't know, an ebook or a blog post or a white paper or something like that?
Well,
unless it's a trade secret.
Not a trade secret, but I will say that my process is different from my current company's process at this point. We are definitely building that. It's a work in progress. But so my process is, first of all, starting with the business goals. You have to understand what the goals of your organization are before you ever start talking about goals for content, because you can have a number of your content, but if they don't line up with what you're trying to do with your business, then you're going to be creating content in the wild, so to speak. So understanding the business goals and then making sure that you set goals for the content that are in line with that. And then once you have that, then you have to start looking at what are the pieces that fit into the strategy that then supports those goals. So, when we talk about content strategy, something I want to emphasize is that a content strategy is not a content plan. A content plan is part of the content strategy, but so many times I talk to people and they're like, well, we've already planned out what we're doing for the next 3 months. We have our strategy. That's not a strategy. Your strategy also involves things like, who is your audience? At what point in the buying cycle are you going to use this piece of content? How can we atomize this content to use it as many ways as possible? What is our end-to-end workflow? How do you request a piece of content, and how do you work through that process to get it approved and then published and then reviewed at a certain period of time? So that's obviously a lot of components.
Right. She'll be back. Oh, hopefully. Did we lose you? We might have lost you.
So once you get that, then people start going, oh, wow, this does make a difference. Tell me more. And so you kind of like hook them with a calendar, and then you start building in the other pieces. And another thing I always tell people is content strategy is not one in components and in place to be able to create and review and distribute and publish that content like you need to. But that doesn't mean you don't have anything in place. So start somewhere. That's probably the best advice I could give as far as like starting your process at this point without getting into, a zillion details of what that looks like. But start small for a small win, evangelize, and then start building out what it looks like for your process and approval for creation of that content.
And so I'm glad you defined that, because with what we're doing, so right now, we are developing a rebranding solution for a small town in Pennsylvania called Hermitage. They've got about 10 to 15,000 population, but of that population, it's mostly middle to upper income professionals. So it's an area that's seeing a lot of investment. And our work with their municipal government isn't just, here's a new logo, it's everything. It's all encompassing. So what's your brand strategy as it relates to internal stakeholders, external stakeholders? How are we bringing people in to stimulate economic development? Who does this branding work? Who does the brand strategy work after we leave? And God only knows what happens with a content strategy, let alone just communications in general. Like ultimately it's like this specific problem just begets more questions as time moves on. And ultimately what you're doing is you're engineering a system, and that's part of the content strategy. Right. So you're pulling in the demographics and the user profiles. You're looking at the best times to release content, and, drilling down to a very detailed level, not just, we're going to set it out on this day. It's like, no, at this date and time, because our analytics tell us this is the best time to launch content. So it's all very informed.
Absolutely.
Yeah. And, like I said, that strategy piece is exciting to me, because it's not guesswork. It's very calculated risk work, but you can develop and see the patterns.
And I like what you said about like going out and talking to the internal and external stakeholders, because that informs what you're doing, right? If you just start banging out a strategy, and that's why I mentioned the business goals. If you don't understand the business goals or the organization's goals, or what people think is working or what isn't working, and you just go and throw out a strategy, it's not going to be the right one. So I like what you said about, talking to the people that are, probably working for the town, people that are moving into the town, people that have been in the town for a number of years for your particular project. All of that informs what you're trying to do and where you're trying to go with that content.
And, the funny thing about it is that the clients, they themselves don't necessarily know this. And I'll speak general, not necessarily on behalf of Hermitage in that respect, but there are times, and I'm just trying to convey this to my students, like there are times when you're making these decisions and they're informed decisions based on research and data, and the clients are just like, none of this makes sense. And it's like, do you even know what your business goals actually are? Well, yeah, we want to make money quickly and a lot of it. Okay, well, that's all well and good. And I mean, you really see that with small businesses and startups, and where sometimes strategy just kind of goes out the window, and they're more responsive than proactive in that respect. So I'm curious, can you tell me?
But you make a good point there.
Yeah, please go.
Sorry, I was just going to say, you make a good point there. If they don't know who they are and what they are trying to do, if they don't get that message and that story straight, then the content's not going to be where it needs to be, right? Because it should all flow from that. So that's such an important piece to get right first.
Yeah, and talk about just impossible to make content. It would feel rather schizophrenic. You've got different voices and different messages and intent all across the board. So just to switch gears real quick, what is it? What do you do? What is Alert Logic? What is your company? What do they do? Who do they work for? And yeah.
So we actually Okay, so we're a cybersecurity company. We provide managed security services around the area of detection and response. So what that means is that we will watch your infrastructure. We have security operations centers, two of them, and we have 24/7 around the clock service of monitoring your environment to watch out for threats that could cause breaches, any type of attack, and we handle it for you. So our target audience is typically small to mid market, some enterprise supplementing larger companies' security teams. But the idea is that we kind of take that off your plate and give you peace of mind so that you can not have to worry about your security.
Okay. Okay. And what kind of stories do you like to tell? What kind of content resonates most with that content? I'm sorry, not content. The cybersecurity demographic, your industry, really.
Right. So the cybersecurity market is, of course, a very active one, right? Everybody hears about these big breaches in the news. Everybody's worried that their data is being compromised. So that's a pro and a con. It's a pro because everybody's thinking about security. It's a con because everybody's thinking about security, and there's a zillion cybersecurity companies out there, right?
Right.
So trying to differentiate ourselves from the masses has been interesting. So what we're really focusing on right now is the whole managed detection and response story, which means that we can detect those potential breaches. We then respond to them so that you never have to worry about it from start to finish. So the whole peace of mind thing is what's really resonating right now with our buyers and prospects, understanding that, you know, if they have somebody watching their infrastructure for them, their environments for them, that we don't have to, and you've already gone through some fine tuning of your systems and environments, that if something comes in and we think it's suspicious, but we know it's actually, you know, something particular to your environment, we won't call you at 3 a.m. And have to get somebody out of bed. Or if you don't have managed services and you're trying to do your own thing, that the IT person on staff is not getting called out of bed at 3 a.m. on a Sunday morning. So we're really looking at two aspects of that. And one is that that gap of resources, whereas you don't have enough people or money to do all of the security stuff yourself on staff, or you don't have enough knowledge around what you need to be doing. For example, maybe you don't have a security team, you have just an IT manager that is more used to managing across the board, but so you don't have to hire somebody all the ins and outs, and you don't have to do the other on your own. We're here to help you.
So not to cut you off, but I did stop your camera because it was lagging a bit. So hopefully that will kind of resolve the issue that we're having. Am I coming?
I don't know.
No. Am I coming off fluid at all, or is it jagged?
Yeah, you're a little jerky, but not bad.
Okay. Well, I'm a full-on jerk, so that would make that would make total sense. Yeah.
I take it you're editing this part out.
Nope. I'll keep it in, and my students will be like,
okay.
Yeah, he's correct about that. Yeah.
You know, I've noticed that on almost every call I'm on, everybody's saying, I think my internet's a little weird. I think because there's so many people, you know, working from home and trying to deal with this, that it's making everybody's a little slower.
Yeah. It's kind of the same logic as why people are having a lot of plumbing problems right now. It's because like the systems are being used constantly, as opposed to half the day or sporadically. Right. So everyone is on Zoom right now, or, you know, everyone's using the toilet right now. That's a poor example. But
or maybe both.
Well, you know, I think maybe a better comparison would be electricity. Everyone's using their electricity right now.
Exactly.
So everyone's going to have higher bills, and there's more strain on the power grid, et cetera.
Right.
So, but coming back to what you were saying, we have some students that may end up going into cybersecurity. Correct me if I'm wrong, but my sense of things is it's a growing field, it's a growing industry.
Absolutely.
And it's growing exponentially, incredibly fast. Technology, in my experiences, it changes majorly every 6 months. And even that might be gratuitous. Like it's probably even shorter, like every 3 months, I feel like. maybe technology is changing. So there's a lot of technology happening very, very quickly. There are a lot of professionals and companies that are being started to take advantage of that growth. So your industry is becoming bigger. There are more competitors. And, as it relates to your work on the content side of things, how do you differentiate yourself from your competitors through your storytelling?
That's a great question. So basically, with this managed detection and response messaging that we're working on, in essence, basically that is a new category, considered to be a new category within the cybersecurity industry.
Okay.
The analyst, which is who everybody typically looks to for, kind of guidance and who should they go look at for a certain need that they might have in a certain area, are just now coming around to this MDR, or managed detection and response concept. It used to be all about managed security services, managed security service providers. Now it's moving more towards that managed detection and response. So one thing that we're doing this year is really taking a strong stance on us being the leader in that category. We've basically been doing managed detection and response for almost 20 years. We just didn't call it that because that particular concept wasn't around. So
Okay.
that's something that sets us apart. We have been doing that for a long time, and we've actually, we're just about to release what we call the MDR Manifesto. So it's loosely based on the idea of the Agile Manifesto, if you're familiar with Agile marketing or Agile software development at all. And it basically is going to be released it's meant to stir conversation and start talking about MDR and have people in the industry, including us, our partners, even our competitors, and people out there who have the need for these services, to start talking about what this is and what you need to have to be really considered an MDR leader. And so that's one kind of unique way that we're doing it. We're actually putting together a virtual roadshow to go alongside with that, where we talk about the different tenets of the manifesto, and really put some thought leadership out there. So that is probably the most exciting thing I've seen since I've been at this company. I've been here almost a year now, as a way to really kind of set ourselves apart. Sure, we could put another white paper out there. We could put another ebook out there like everybody else is doing, but putting a stake in the ground to say, this is the manifesto that we're all going to talk about, it's kind of bold and daring, but at the same time, it's different. Not everybody's out there doing that.
How excited I'm excited for you. So, when you're an industry leader and you get to put your thought leadership into practice, you, like you said, you're really putting your stake in the ground, and you're saying, this is the hill that we're going to die on if it comes down to it.
Right.
We're putting all of our ideological and probably financial investment into this, and here's hoping it works. But of course you're not hoping, because this too is a strategic response, a strategic decision. Now, keeping that in mind, like being able to be at the forefront and say, this is how it's going to work. This is how we're defining it for everyone else. That's an exciting thing. I feel like that's the kind of game-changing project that a lot of creatives want to be involved in and would invest themselves in. Because, marketing, you've been here, I've been here, like you can market the same things all the time, every day, every year, and it becomes rote and cyclical. Very rarely do I see like these types of projects actually hit someone's desk. So good on you for being a part of that. Are you nervous?
Yeah, we're a little bit. I mean, I like it's bold, and it could go one way or it could go the other, or it could go, to various degrees, right? But I think just even if we put it out there and everybody disagrees with us, we've still won in a sense, because everybody's talking about it. And
Absolutely.
we are stimulating the discussion in the marketplace, and that is our goal of this, right? Because the more that we stimulate this discussion, and the manifesto itself, I mean, it says on the front page, from the people at Alert Logic, but other than that, it doesn't talk about us and our services at all, which is the way it should be. So I'm really excited to see what kind of conversations we get around it, and see how it does shape the market and what we're trying to do in the market for the rest of the year and years to come.
Well, it's disruption. It's very
Right.
intentional and purposeful disruption. And, if that's the intent, then you'll absolutely succeed in disrupting. As for what the result is, the fallout, that can be kind of the fun part. So how do you,
Yeah.
in one sense, it's like, let's say it lands and it's a big hit. What are some of
Mm.
the consequences of that? Well, you've inspired your competitors. You've inspired some cyber IT guy at X corporation to finally quit and start his own company. And, so there's all kinds of sort of results from that you can
Hmm.
claim responsibility for, whether it works for you or against you. But that's the
Yeah,
risks of
absolutely.
but that's the risk of industry leadership, right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. No big risk, no big reward, right?
That
So,
absolutely. Yeah. So,
and I'm
uh,
fortunate to be somewhere. Oh, sorry. I was just going to say, I'm fortunate to be somewhere that encourages experimentation, so very much at the sweet spot right now between having enough budget to try things, but also not being so grounded in our ways that we can't try things. So that's been
right.
pretty cool too.
So I'm so glad you mentioned that because, Alert Logic, they understand that they've got uh, quality service, the basics. They got quality service, great reputation. But with that recipe, you need to be a bit risk taking or risk averse and just say, um, we're going to do it. We're going to stake our claim and try to level up the industry, because by way of doing so, that makes our results better. Not all
Mm.
companies are willing to do that. They're risk averse in that respect. They don't. It's like stability, and
Yeah.
slow growth, but growth nevertheless. Um,
Right.
there is, one of the unfortunate perceptions, I think, with technology in general, especially IT and not necessarily cybersecurity, but at least information technology services. The perception is they don't know how to market themselves. They don't know how to communicate. Anytime you have an issue with a computer technology, you have to contact an IT consultant. They have trouble communicating and things like that. There's actually a lot of really awful and unfortunate stereotypes put against the technologies, the various technology industries. How do you kind of get away from that?
Oh boy. Let's see. I think a lot of this comes down to getting back to your brand management that you were talking about. I really feel like, first of all, you need to have a really good website. That sounds so basic, but if you go and talk to someone and they just happen to hear your company name in passing, or you meet them on an airplane, or you meet them in the elevator, hence the term elevator pitch, and all you get out of it is, oh, I do this for this company. And you go and look at their website, and their website is lousy and it doesn't give you the information that you need. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
that's their first interaction, or maybe their second because they met you, but the first interaction with your company and your brand. And I think just having, first of all, just looking like you have your act together across the board, whether it be your website plus your ads, your website plus your social, plus your employee engagement, plus all of that. It is obvious much more quickly than companies realize
Right.
that you have silos within your organization, because it shows so clearly on your web properties, right, or your social ones. So that's one way to do it. Another is just to when you are planning out your content and stuff, ensuring that you are providing a cohesive journey through your content. You can throw 45 PDFs up on the website, on the same page, and sure, people might read some of them, but if you're not actually walking them through, oh, you read this, you might also be interested in this, and then you actually provide a relevant next piece of content.
Right.
People don't always understand they're walking through that journey, but they're like, oh my goodness, how'd they know? And because it was planned, it was thought out, it was structured, versus just creating random content. And again, unfortunately, or fortunately, it goes back to content strategy. That's so important in so many areas. A web page is content, an email stream that you send is content. All of that is content, and all of that needs to be cohesive, or you do get lost in the shuffle with everybody
Mm-hmm.
else.
Yeah. And so thank you for saying that, because it's kind of rolling me into my next question for you. And I've got a few more, and being conscious of your time. So the cybersecurity industry and its growth is reminding me of the additive manufacturing industry, or 3D printing, and
Mm-hmm.
how like there are, it's kind of interesting because like with 3D printing, that industry, it's practically the same technology, just being employed in different ways. And none of them are really able to market themselves really well insofar as like
Mm-hmm.
differentiating themselves from one another. And I had just seen, because of the coronavirus outbreak, there's one company, or maybe they're students, I don't totally recall, but they're 3D printing their own respirator masks, right?
Oh, that's
Um,
cool.
yeah, and so like that's a really unique application that is relevant, and it's going to put those people or that entity in a higher position in the industry because they're deviating from the norm, right? So taking they're like also printing these, and like they're going to give them away for free or something like that. But
Mm-hmm.
it's making me think about how has the cybersecurity industry, and maybe how has Alert Logic responded to the outbreak and cybersecurity threats that may come as a consequence of
Mm-hmm.
that.
Yeah, so the first step that I've seen most of the cybersecurity companies take, ourselves included, is really the focus on so many people working from home, and how do you secure that? The more people you
Mm-hmm.
have working from home, accessing obviously company networks, infrastructures, environments, the more likely it is that there. First of all, it opens up more pathways for possible breaches, right? So you need more protection. So protection around those endpoints, your devices, your computers, your phones, that are accessing those particular environments in a different way than they normally do, because they're not at the office on the network,
Right.
locally. So that's the first thing. The other thing that we're starting to see is, like you said, the potential for misinformation or breaches around the coronavirus itself, which I don't know if you saw this, but the Department of Health and Human Services was actually hacked a couple days ago, and providing false information about the outbreak, and
Of
telling people to
course.
stay home when they hadn't yet. Yeah, of course. Things like, oh, it's spreading here, now you're under shelter in place, when they weren't yet under shelter in place, and that sorts of things. So,
Mm-hmm.
that's an interesting and valid argument, in my opinion, for paying even more attention to security right now. You can go either way in a time like this for what you're spending on security. One way, you can go, oh my goodness, I need more security because the world is uncertain. We've got these people like attack the Department of Health and Human Services. Or you have the other side of the house, which are like, oh my goodness, I can't possibly spend on security right now. I've got to keep the lights on. Not quite
Mm-hmm.
realizing that part of keeping the lights on nowadays is that security protection, because you get one breach, it can take your whole company down, especially if you're a mom and pop shop or a small,
Right.
to mid-sized business. So primarily what I'm seeing is the stuff around the working from home, and providing free options to either extend a tool that you might have, or cover more of your attack surface with that sort of thing. And then I'm anticipating that over the coming weeks, we'll also see additional offers around free or discounted security tools, security
Mm-hmm.
services, something a little more robust than just that endpoint protection.
VPNs are going to blow up,
Yeah.
if they haven't already. They absolutely will. As I mean, they're so accessible, but there's plenty of them, so it's a very competitive field in that respect. But with your company and the work that you're doing, you're asserting this thought leadership or industry leader role, well before this even happened. So
Mm-hmm.
that's a good position to be in, because you can help not just guide the narrative of the industry in relation to this outbreak, but also like essentially teach other companies how to do the right thing when it matters most.
Right. Right.
Just from, you know, I think that's just a really important position to be in. it strengthens your brand. It strengthens the quality of your communications. It differentiates you from your competitors, but it also gives you an entirely different investment in your customers and the industry itself. So kudos to you guys.
Well, thanks. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head with, really making sure that you are taking care of the customers and the people out there. This is not a time to try and go sell your wares. Sure,
Yes.
that doesn't mean there's no market for them, but it's a time to show that we are all in this together and really try to help our customers and our partners and our prospects, because it is a scary time. And, anytime you're talking scary time, security does come into play. So, if the message is strong enough, I feel like it'll take care of itself, right, when it comes to what you're doing around sales and all of that stuff. But it's definitely to our advantage, I think, that there are possibilities for how we can help people through what we do every day anyway.
So a brief anecdote, the higher education field, totally blindsided by all of this. It's been really interesting to experience this as a person in higher ed and just kind of watching the fallout.
I bet.
Because we're an industry where all of our people, so like I'm at Pitt, there's like 10,000 employees, right? We're all at home right now. All of us. And I mean, it just feels like this insurmountable sort of challenge to protect all of us. I mean, I'm at home and I'm probably not on a truly secure connection. And, fortunately, for our industry, I would say that we do have some things that are of significant value, particularly student records. And, since it's Pitt, there's probably a lot of patented types of technologies that we need to protect. But otherwise, it's like, oh, well, some dude's going to get into my class content, like no big deal. But anyway, I'll let you know my thoughts on that after the dust settles, which who knows, might be a year from now.
Yeah. I think there's a couple things with higher ed, especially around, sorry. I was going to say around security, because what you're talking about, like the student data records and stuff, I mean, yes, that could be valuable depending on who the hackers are. But what we are seeing a lot of in higher ed is ransomware. So being prepared for, a school system dealing with the ransomware. And then the other thing I was going to note is that, like you said, not being really ready for something like this, where your entire faculty and staff and students are all at home online. It's also a pretty cool opportunity for creativity. There's a lot of stuff going on with people having their kids at home, and not just college students, and trying to figure out the best way we can do this. And sure, we're going to have some hits, we're going to have some misses, but it's been interesting to watch how people have come up with different ways to do online learning, online exercise classes, all kinds of stuff that they weren't really doing as much of before.
It's testing the limits of practically everything. That's the way I'm looking at it. So like everyone is using Zoom right now. So as a consequence, we're just going to see exactly how much how much capacity it has to hold these video conferences. Right. The internet, how has the internet not collapsed yet? So I had heard that maybe it was in the UK, their government asked Netflix to compress the video down a bit further, so they're not sending high resolution or ultra high def video to their subscribers. It's just like standard definition.
Yeah.
Well, at any rate, what sort of advice do you have for marketing students that are getting ready to graduate and enter the field?
Good question. I think my best advice would probably be, what makes you stand out? And I know that's not always an easy question. It's not an easy question for those of us seasoned in our career, but as a hiring manager, if I get 15 resumes for, say, a marketing coordinator position, and 14 of them all say the same thing, and one of them says all the same things, but has been able to spin their unique capabilities in a way that shows me how they might solve a problem I would have, that's going to be the one I want to talk to. So I think part of the hardest part of finding a job is marketing yourself, which ironically we're talking about marketing students marketing themselves, but this is the
No,
case for everybody, right?
it's absolutely true. Yeah.
Yeah, it's hard to sit down. And I know when I was going through my job searches over the last few years, and when I had, changed careers to move into marketing, it's not easy to sit down and think, okay, what are my best, talents that I can take from this previous career and shift them over? It's the same kind of thing because you're making a shift as a student, right? You're shifting from student life to the corporate world or nonprofits or just the job world. So thinking about what are the problems you want to solve in your career and being able to point your strengths to that and being able to tell that story is huge. And there's lots of people out there to help you. Don't try to do it on your own. Talk to the people that know you best and get ideas around that and be able to build a story around who you are and how you can help an organization.
I love the fact that you said try to figure out what challenges you want to overcome in your career versus just try to find an entry-level job. I think if students were able to, and that in and of itself is a very hard question because they maybe don't have the experience in understanding the full landscape of challenges that are put before them, right? So I love the fact that you said that because it is a differentiating factor and you can build a lot of capital for yourself operating in those unique niche spaces.
Absolutely.
And, just thinking about, for me, I was a tenured professor, right? And now I'm not. Like I willingly gave up permanent employment so I could do new things and face different and new challenges. And I think that, for students that want a memorable, active career, they should focus on what kind of challenges they could overcome as opposed to just trying to find a job and staying in it for as long as possible.
Yeah, absolutely. And to take this whole discussion full circle back to the beginning, when you're talking about meeting me, on social media and just asking for people to volunteer, I think people are scared to reach out sometimes, but we have these social media, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, all these abilities, Instagram even, to reach out to somebody and say, hey, can you just talk to me about what partner marketing is? I have no idea. Can I buy you a cup of coffee? And to be honest, I just hired somebody in December that her mother-in-law had reached out to me. We worked together long ago and said, my daughter-in-law is looking for a job in marketing. She's not really sure she wants to do. So I'm trying to put her in touch with people that are in different areas of marketing. Would you be willing to talk to her? So I talked to her and I was so impressed with her questions and how thoughtfully she looked at what kind of job she was looking for and stuff. I hired her. And, had she not reached out, had she not worked with her mother-in-law and asked for help with the networking, she wouldn't have this job. She might have another job, sure. But you just never know what that can do for you. And most people are willing to help. Some people, just don't have time or whatever that particular point. But I highly encourage you to reach out to different people in different parts of marketing so you can get that information if you don't have it.
And it sounds like your newest hire was very open to being mentored or was seeking a mentor.
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Oh, sure. I said it sounds like your latest hire was very open to being mentor, having a mentor, found the value in that. Still nothing? All right, we'll give her a minute here.
Said it sounds like my newest hire was very open to having a mentor. Is that what you said?
Having a mentor, finding a mentor, yes.
Yes, absolutely. In fact, I connected her to, before I hired her, I connected her to another friend of mine who runs a product marketing organization and another one that runs a demand gen. So she was starting to learn about these different areas of marketing because what I told her was, because she's like, I just know I want to be in marketing. She was in sales and she wanted to get out of sales and go back to marketing. And she said, but I'm not real. I said, well, there's a zillion things you can do in marketing, right? And so after she kind of did her rounds of talking to that her mother-in-law hooked her up with, and the people that I connected her to, and then some others that she had made on LinkedIn herself. She came back to me and she said, okay, I think I'm interested in partner marketing and product marketing. So she'd
Cool.
done the legwork, she had a little help along the way, but
Right.
she reached out, and because of that, she could narrow down what she wanted to look at. And then she ended up, like I said, getting a job out of it, and I didn't like just give her the job. I put her through my normal, team interview process and everything.
Sure.
But everybody was so impressed with her proactiveness and how thorough she was in her research of the company and the role and everything else, that I was pretty excited too, because, I probably wouldn't have gotten as good a candidate just getting a bunch of resumes off the internet.
Mm-hmm.
So doing your research and being able to connect what you've done in the past and who you are to that role and the challenges, as I mentioned before, is a really quite a bit bigger deal than most candidates realize.
And, that extrovertedness that she demonstrated, it makes sense now because she was in sales, and
Mm-hmm.
sales absolutely forces you to be an extrovert.
Yep.
But to also talk and engage and know your weaknesses and, try to fill those holes as best you can. So
Yep.
this is all really great advice. Well, we'll go ahead and discontinue there. I want to thank you so much for your time, and hopefully we can do this again in a few months and
Yeah,
double
that'd be
check
great.
and see where things are at. So thanks again, Alyssa. And if my students are interested in learning more about you and Alert Logic and cybersecurity, etc., how can they reach out to you or get a hold of you or learn more?
Sure. They are welcome to email me. My email address is alyssa.fox@alertlogic.com.
Okay. So
Thanks for having me.
thank you. Okay. Take care.
All right.